Are you ready to become a leader and change maker by getting your PhD? Ready to stop stressing and actually take action so you create offer letters instead of rejections? Then this is the spot for you. I'm Dr. Natalie Morse, and I'm here to help you get into your dream PhD with full funding. Let's go. Hi, I'm Dr. Natalie Morse. Welcome to the podcast. I was having this really fun idea of if I had $5,000, what would I invest in right now? And what would I invest in if I wanted to get my PhD? And I think it's really important because we all have limited time, money, energy, and how you invest that changes your life. So exactly if you're here to get into your PhD, I want to really dive deep into exactly how I would spend and invest that money so I get my PhD, get to create the life that I want, and go on to have big, beautiful impact and dreams. And I also want to compare it to investing in my business, right? Because I've done both. I have my PhD, I have a business, and I think it will give you a really interesting frame of how to look at this and how to really invest in what you want and go get it. First, you have $5,000 right now. I pretty much guarantee it. I know people will come at me in the comments and they will say, I'm living paycheck to paycheck, or you don't know my life, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. That's always going to exist. And I do want to acknowledge systems of oppression that do make it harder for certain people to have the money to invest. So that exists no matter what. But most people, even living paycheck to paycheck, are going to spend $5,000 over the next 5 months. No problem. $5,000 is not what it used to be. So I want to really dive into what you can do to make that more effective for yourself. And the other thing, if you are living paycheck to paycheck, the only way out of that cycle is to make a change, is to do something different. Because if you keep doing what you've always done, you're going to keep getting what you've always had, which is what you have right now. So if you want something else, you're going to have to make moves. I also want to call in my really resourceful people and people who are super excited to invest in themselves and see their growth. Because you have options, I want to talk to you about how to be strategic about your time, money, and energy. I want to set the stage a little bit on, let's say, an average 25-year-old. I asked good old ChatGPT to tell me about their budget, what they might be spending money on, things like that. So, of course, this is going to vary depending on your industry, where you live, etc. On average, you might be making $60,000, $100,000, something like that in a year, right? If you have a college degree as a young 20-something. And so what that means in terms of income is $5,000 to $10,000 a month is coming in. And then your necessary budget expenses like your food, your rent, your electricity, basic bills, right? It might be, depends, $3,000 to $6,000. So you might have anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000 a month to discretionarily invest and spend on what you want. And there's so many great people out there for personal finance. So I clearly don't want to pretend that that's my area of specialty. But there's so many great people out there. I love Money with Katie. I also love Remit, and he does How to Live Your Rich Life. And I love their philosophy. It's all about what matters to you. So I'm not going to sit here and try to pretend that I know everybody's values and wants and budgets and lifestyles, right? Of course not. That you know you best. But I do want to talk about specifically here some high-level stuff so it can guide you and you can start to think about your own life and what makes sense for you. So I asked ChatGPT to give me 3 personas of a 25-year-old and what they might be spending $5,000 on over 5 months. Truly, it's not going to go far. As you guys all know, right? You're living in the world that going out to eat is way different than it was a few years ago. And so, of course, you're going to see that here. But let's see what GPT told me. All right, so first it gave the persona of a master's student on a budget. They say, I want to eat, learn something, and not drown in debt. So, of course, everyone eats out a little bit, maybe a coffee shop, some fun with friends. They say that budget's around $250 a month. And so over the next 5 months, you're going to spend about $1,200. You're going to do some academic development and maybe pay for some apps or things, $200 a month. So over the next 5 months, that's $1,000 just going like that. Maybe you buy a laptop or something like that. So it could be a one-time purchase of $800. You're going to do therapy or gym or self-care, things like that. $100 a month, $500 overall. And then maybe you have some emergency savings or you do some travel. So another $300 a month. And so another $1,500, right? that budget you can see did not go super far, right? But you're going to spend it whether or not you think about it or not. So I think that's a key thing to think about. Let's look at somebody who's earning a little bit more. So maybe they're early professional, software engineer, something like that. So they might spend a little bit more on eating out or things like that. Maybe $300, $350 a month. So $1,750 over the 5 months. They might buy a new laptop or a new monitor, $1,000. They might buy some books or some tech certifications, $750 over the 5 months. Maybe they do some investing, things like that, $300 a month. So another $1,500, boom, right away. And then this is my favorite persona that they do, the YOLO friend. Life is short, I work hard, play hard. Sorry, I work hard, I play harder. Wink. So their monthly budget for eating out and social is $400 a month. $2,000 you're going to spend like that over the next 5 months. You might be doing some weekend events, maybe going to visit friends, things like that. So they said $1,500 to spend on airplane and some food. You got to do your shopping, right? You need a new shirt, a new pair of shoes. And so that's going to be $150 a month, or you're going to spend $750. Self-care, nails, something like that, $150 a month, which is easy to do. And so again, that's where the budget went. So you can see there that depending on what you want to spend your money on, you're going to spend it over those next 5 months. And so when I talk about investing in your PhD or your career or your goals or what you really care about, it's important to think about what you're already spending your money on and then what you truly value so you can make those informed decisions for yourself. The other thing I want to point out is how we invest our money is personal, and there's no right or wrong. A really great book is The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, and it's so fantastic. He basically says that everyone has a different set of experiences that are influencing how we determine to spend and invest. And it may look irrational to others, but because of how we live and what we've seen, it makes perfect sense to us. And to control your behavior and not the market. The market's always going to go up or down, but what you truly value and your long-term vision is more important than short-term things that may go up or down. So he really does suggest to think about your own values and then act accordingly. And that you don't need to optimize every single decision. I think right now, right, the freaking TikToks, right, on like all the things you can do and how you could save $100 here or whatever. His point is do what makes sense for you and that you feel is sustainable for you and the life that you want. Here's an example. If someone has $20,000 in student loan debt, one person, because of their experiences and their lived experiences, they might say, oh my God, I have to pay off that debt immediately. Debt is terrible. I can't possibly have that. So every extra dollar they're getting, they're putting towards paying that off. Another person might say, hey, I know things always come up in life and I want to be prepared to that, or I want to be able to have fun when I want to. Like, life is short. I don't want to just live on ramen for my life. So I will pay down my debt, but I also want to put some money in the bank account so I can use it for what I want. And that feels better to me, more sustainable to me. No right or wrong there. It's literally personal preference, hence personal finance. So you don't need everyone to agree with you to do what you want. You know what you want to do. You should trust yourself at this point. You've been very successful in getting where you want to go. Why do you feel like you're not capable of making your best decisions at this point, right? You absolutely are. I guess a thought about this from a lived experiences point of view, because I'm older than most of you starting your PhD, is that I lived through the Great Recession. 2008, I was in Detroit, like the freaking epicenter for that. So I saw so many people losing their jobs. I saw such extreme stress and anxiety, and that influences how I invest. Because I don't really trust big corporations to take care of me, I choose to invest more in me and what I can control and like believing that I'm going to create better outcomes for myself. And again, that's from my lived experiences. So other people who didn't have that might feel very differently, and that's totally fine too. You get to choose your best path and what makes sense for you. Okay, down to the meat of it. How would I absolutely spend $5,000 if I wanted to really dramatically improve my ability to get into top PhD programs, create an amazing life for myself, and have a big impact and just enjoy the frick out of my life? Right? Like, how would I do that? Where would I start? First, it's important to think about different points in time and where you are. I would not spend $5,000 if I were at the beginning of this process or if I was at the end. I would spend it differently. So I'm going to talk about two basic groups of people that I think about in terms of where the money would have the biggest impact. So the first group of people is people who are starting from ground zero. They are just starting this process. They don't even have research experience, and they're trying to get into a PhD. They're starting from over here. The second group of people is like, hey, I've already done some things. I've already got some research experience. How do I really then optimize and push myself forwards to get into top programs? So these are different points in time. So for the first group who are starting from ground zero, I would spend $5,000 getting research experience. That is the goal. That is the biggest mover from hell no, you're not going to get into yes, I am having great opportunities. So that's where I want to spend my investment because that's the biggest bang for my buck. And so how do you get research experience is like the question. So the classic way is to get your master's, to go work with somebody, do research projects, create work, and have a great opportunity to improve your skills. Clearly, a master's is going to be more than $5,000. Actually, no, mine was free. Mine was fully funded, but it cost my time. It was not, there's no free lunch. I'll talk about that in a minute. I could have been working and making $50K a year instead of going and getting my master's making 21. So I spent 30 grand a year, whether or not my brain told me that I did. I absolutely did from an opportunities cost perspective. Anyway, that's what I would spend with my 5 grand. If I had a good master's opportunity, I would be like, yep, let's put it towards that and get it done. Boom. That gets me my research experience. You can also look for RA roles. So same thing. You could get paid to be a research assistant, research associate, program coordinator at different institutions. And so I would spend money on landing those roles. So I would do that in many ways, right? You might need someone to help you with your resume, with the outreach, with crafting your essays, because a lot of these roles really require the same level of almost application that a PhD does in a way. You have to write these essays and cover letters and things. So if you need someone to help with that, I would pay for that. Or I would also think about networking and how I can land these roles. So you might need to pay for conferences. You might need to pay for travel to get places and to meet these people and to have them know that, yeah, you are a good person to work with and they do want to have you on their team. So that's what I would spend my money on. That's exactly what I would invest $5,000 on if I needed to get research experience in a hurry. Let's compare this to building a business. Same thing. If you're starting a business from ground zero, you literally don't have a business, right? You're just like, you just signed up for the LLC. So you don't have a product, you don't have a team, you don't know exactly how to sell or what your ideal client is. There's a lot of unknowns here. And I did this. I literally paid for a coach because I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much I don't know what I don't know. And this person has a plan. I want to use that plan and see how far I can get with it. And that's exactly what I did. A good way to think about this is to think about your time. So if you as a business owner or you as a PhD, right, could make X amount of money and right now you're making less, what is that delta and what is it worth to you to close that gap? So let's say as a business owner, I could make $100 an hour once I get my business going. But right now I got crickets, I got nothing. So every day that I spend not having my doors open, welcoming clients, I am losing money. If I could make $100 an hour, 40 hours a week, that's 16 grand over 4 weeks, over a month that I could have been making if I had a great business. So by not investing that $5,000 to get me there quicker, every month I'm losing $11,000. So it's really weird when you do that math of like how expensive it is to stay the same. Our brains are not good at that math. My brain goes, keep the $5,000. It keeps you safe in case a rainy day. But literally, if I had $11,000, I would be a lot safer for a rainy day, right? I would have a lot more opportunities to do what I wanted because I would have a lot more flexibility. Same with the PhD, right? If you are continuing to apply year after year without research experience and you need to do, that's the price of admission. Go get it done. And then you can move on to your PhD and what you want sooner and getting all these opportunities for yourself faster. So in order to get more research experience, you may have to volunteer. And that obviously is a time commitment. So you may need to cut hours from other roles. And so that is an opportunity cost. I would use that $5K to pay myself. Hey, if instead of me working 40 hours a week, I work 20 hours a week, let's supplement that income so I can volunteer and get the research experience that I need. That's a great use of resources. And even if you don't need to cut hours, let's say you want to keep your full-time job and volunteer on the weekend or do something after hours or whatnot, there is still a cost to that. You're not doing that mental math, but you could get a job walking dogs after work. And so every time that you're saying no to that job to watch Netflix, you're saying no to $40 an hour or something like that. And it's the same math that I want you to encourage when you think about how valuable you are and your time is. So if you're having to cut hours from the main job, it's the same as you working that main job and foregoing that dog walker salary. It's weird to do that mental math, I will admit, but I think it's worth reminding yourself you're always giving things up, or you're always choosing other things in terms of opportunity cost for what you want at that point, whether it's watching Netflix or it's building your career, right? These are all decisions that we're making every single day, whether we think about them or not. Okay, so that's how I would spend $5K if I were in those camps of starting from ground zero. It's getting research experience, it's getting a plan, it's getting something so that way I can move on to the next level. And then the next level, if you have research experience, how would you invest now to really improve your odds of getting into top programs, being successful, and creating that career for yourself? The first place is assess where you are, because just because you're qualified, your skill set, your experiences are different than everybody else's. So where do you need to improve? That's the first question. And then after identifying that, I would figure out where I want to invest in order to close that gap. So usually it's skills. Usually there are skills that we are lacking in certain areas that would make us more effective or more successful. If you are not good at networking, if you don't have a strategy, if you're not doing it and you need to pay somebody else to help you do that effectively, do that. Because networking, having faculty want you on their team is the biggest way to get into a PhD program, and it's going to pay off. So building that skill is important. If you don't know how to market yourself, how to write, how to craft a compelling resume, a great research pitch, get those grant proposals in. Same thing. I would invest in somebody who has done that, who can help me, because I know I am not as good as somebody who's been doing it for 5-10 years, right? Like clearly that's those 10,000 hours, I'm trying to buy those. So that's what I'm doing. I would talk to people and get referrals. And then I would talk to these people that I want to work with, 2 or 3 people, understand how they work with me and what plan I like best. And then I would go. I would execute it. I would not keep continuing to think, what about plan A versus plan B? Because that is a waste of your time and money. If you spend money to work with somebody and then still keep going around in a circle, that's on you. That's on you not really managing your mind and moving forward with intention. So I just want to say, don't just spend money expecting results, right? You have to show up at the same time in order to get what you came for. This next discussion, I think, is really interesting. If my skills are on point, like if I'm good at all that, then I would spend money on my appearance. There's a lot of literature that talks about how our perceived physical appearance influences how others treat us, how they hire us, how much money we make throughout our career. And clearly that is more pronounced in people of color and people from different backgrounds, and also women, right? So the classic, I guess, most desirable from an attractive standpoint is a white male, right? And so everybody else is trying to work in that paradigm. And so this is a 2008 article from Tanya Rosenbelt, and she basically talks about the beauty premium, exactly what we're saying, that those that are perceived to be more attractive tend to make 10 to 15% more than those of us who are less attractive. So investing in your appearance does have a direct payoff. And especially in this PhD game, when you're trying to get hired, it's the same thing. You're trying to get hired. So as much as we would love it not to be based on anything of what we look like, we're human beings and our brains were wired millions and millions of years ago. And so we do take a lot of information that is nonverbal and we process that. And then we decide who we want on our team or not. Okay, so you are all savvy researchers and one data point does not make the trend. So I have another data source here, which I think is very interesting. This is a 2017 article and it's basically finds that there's not a beauty premium. So this is by Satoshi Kanazawa from the Department of Management, London School of Economics, and Mary Still from the Department of Marketing and Management, University of Massachusetts, Boston. And so they say that they don't really find a huge impact from attractiveness when you control for other things like personality, which is interesting to me, like, openness, outgoingness, that kind of thing. And so also when you control for intelligence, which again, I find hard to think that all these other data sources were not controlling for education. They say intelligence is different than education, but anyway. And what they actually found, which is very interesting, is an ugliness premium. The people that are perceived to be very unattractive make more money, which is interesting to me. And their hypotheses are that they are perceived to work harder to overcompensate for their lack of attractiveness and or this like genius that can't be bothered. I got the messy hair. I'm such a freaking genius. It doesn't matter, right? It's always a he, because women are not allowed to be messy geniuses, right? They have to continue to look pretty. And then I think this study is the most interesting. And so this is from Ellis Monk from Harvard and Michael Esposito and Hedwig Lee from University of Washington, St. Louis. And these are sociologists. And they actually really try to get at attractiveness as it intersects with race and gender in terms of how much money we make and how successful we are, right? They're using money as a proxy for success and, opportunities, things like that. Let me get to the meat of it. I'm going to go to the tables. I'm going to talk about some p-values. Let's do it. So first, we've got our overall model, right, which just looks at differences in race, parents' education, etc. You can see if your parents don't have a high school degree, you are negatively affected in terms of your earning potential, things that you would expect, right? And we see the common differences in terms of white, black, that the reference is white, and that if you are black, a negative impact of negative 14%. If you're Hispanic, an actual positive impact of 8%. If you're a female, a negative impact of 35%. Yay. Okay, so you can see those things. And then what's interesting is when they break down the attractiveness within these different types of groups, the interaction of these things. When you look at attractiveness scores, if you look at in a particular group, let's say black men, if you go from very unattractive to very attractive, you are seeing a huge bump, 28%. And that effect size is essentially the same as going from a black individual to a white individual in terms of earning potential, which is really interesting. And they see the similar thing across the board, just the effect size changes. So you can see that attractiveness for white females has like the lowest ability to change. So if you are a very unattractive white female or a very attractive white female, your earning potential doesn't change a lot. And there's a lot of ideas on why that could be. They put this in this terms, like white males with very low levels of perceived attractiveness are 88 cents on the dollar to their white counterparts who are assumed to be very attractive. And that's a similar magnitude as going from the black-white race gap. Same thing, right? Like a black person makes 87 cents on the dollar compared to a white person. And so you can see a similar magnitude shift in appearance. This is interesting because sometimes we can control our appearance, right? We can control what kind of clothes we wear and if we do our nails or not. Unfortunately, right, of course, we would prefer not to have these implications, right? To actually be judged on, our intellect, our merit. But this is the world. So you live in the world. You tell me. Yeah. If I want to spend money on getting my hair and nails done, the pink tax, as they say, the hot girl hamster wheel, it's probably warranted. So assessing where you are. So just anecdotally, a year ago, I was just like hanging out with my husband. I was like, he had braces as a kid, but he never wore his retainers. And so I was like, I think you need Invisalign again. He's, no, I don't. Because we have kids. We're going to need to spend that money on our kids' braces in a couple of years. But I was like, hey, I love you. I want you to feel good. And he didn't really care. So this is maybe me just being like, I think you would look cute with a little bit straighter teeth. And yeah, spent, I can't remember if it was like $4 or $6 on Invisalign. And after he did it, he's, I'm really glad I did that. Who doesn't want to feel more confident? And also, I also think it's going to help him get promoted, right? Or create opportunities for himself. And so the takeaway shouldn't be that you have to look a certain way. The takeaway should be, what are you signaling with all of your nonverbal communication? And where can you improve that? And so if you can signal that you are having high attention to detail, that you care, that you put effort in, those are good signals that people care about. So I would frame it that way for you, and whatever makes the most sense for you, whatever you really enjoy or you want to put your best foot forward in certain areas, make that happen. So if you've got all of your skills, if you've got your appearance locked in, then it's time for networking. So then I would really spend money on conferences or travel or meeting people or whatever I need to do to get in the room. So those are the things that I would spend money on right now. 5K, easy, right? Knock this out. You can improve your ability to get in top programs. Let me compare this to a business, right? So say you were a social media manager and you know exactly what kind of product you would create, you know exactly the prices and how you would structure it, you know how to get clients. So you're not at ground zero for starting a business. Like you've got a good framework. So then I probably am better at certain areas than others. And so then I would invest that 5K in growing my business on areas where I am not as strong. Maybe I'm really good at managing someone's social media, but I don't know how to grow a brand myself. Or I don't really know how to do sales, or I don't really have a strong understanding of contract management. And I've got all these big clients now that I need to figure out. Maybe I need to hire a lawyer, right? Whatever it is, the skill set that I'm not super great in, I would either hire that person to just do the work, or I would like, hey, train me so that way I can do it and I can be effective and then I can get it done. So that's what I would spend the 5K on, just for my own business. And so in my own business, I spent 6K a couple years ago on branding because again, I am not a branding expert. I wanted somebody else who knew what they were doing to help me be effective. And if I did the math of, let's say I pay myself $100 an hour, easily I could spend 2 weeks trying to figure this out. I could spend 2 years trying to figure this out. And I don't have that time or money, right, to do that. So that's why I say, hey, this is going to help me get to the next level, attract the right people, and have better outcomes. And so same thing, once I have the skills dialed in for my business, I know that I am the biggest asset to my business. And business, right, is obviously the same for you as you build your life. Like you are the biggest asset to you creating the life that you want. And so whatever you need to do to invest in that. So it's same thing with appearance. Maybe I do need to get my teeth straightened, or maybe I do need better clothes. Maybe I need a new laptop so when I'm meeting clients, I don't have this like janky broken laptop, right? Whatever it is to really set myself up for success, that's where I would spend the $5,000 instantly. And to just as an aside, I don't really like getting my nails done. It's just not something I enjoy. So just because it's on the list, if you don't enjoy it, it doesn't make you feel good, doesn't mean you have to do it, obviously, right? You know what makes sense for you. And then I would focus on networking, conferences. Maybe I need to spend money on travel or taking people out to lunch or what have you. So again, investing that money has a purpose. It is going to come back to help me build my business, or it's going to come back to you to help you build your PhD and build your life. The last thing I want to follow up with is the right investment at the right time. So we talked about where you are in this process. So if you're over there spending money on your hair and you don't have any research experience, I would question that. I would say, is this the right thing at this right time? There's no problem in tackling these things as they come up, right? You don't need to solve every single problem right this second. So as you're investing in what matters most to you, assess what skills you have now, where the gap is, how can you close those things, what are the biggest things that are going to move the needle for you, and attack those first. I know it can be very enticing to see everything at once and go, oh, I can't solve every problem at once because I only have $5,000. If I were doing my business and I was like, I need to do marketing and branding, I need a new website, I need to hire a sales guru, I need to hire somebody who's going to manage all of the new clients, I would be like, okay, I only have $5,000. I can't do that. I'm out. But if I just say, okay, at this time, the very most important thing is getting my website up because nobody can find me otherwise, that's where I focus. And then you move to the next problem. Invest in what matters to you, and you will absolutely create better results for yourself. If you want to work with people like me and my team, we do this work every single day with our clients on how to get them from where they are to where they need to be to get into top PhD programs. Happy to talk with you, see if we're a good fit to work together. If we're not, I'll let you know that as well and give you some ideas on where else to look. And you can book a call and talk with us, and we will get to work.